Hello everybody and welcome back to a video where we're taking a look again at two indie games that have just come out on PSVR2. Now today's games are very different from each other, and we're going to start with the one that is easiest to talk about and I have the least thoughts about, which is a game called Rainbow Reactor Fusion that came out yesterday. To be honest, this is literally TikTok the game, to be honest, because it's a match 3 game, meaning it's essentially along the veins of Candy Crush and all those kind of games. And you're essentially fixing a reactor that used to power the city that you're in by doing match 3 tasks and powering up each level to get the city back in working order with the help of a little robot dude. In terms of visuals, the game is pretty sharp looking, even though you can tell it's an indie game, but all of these textures and models I think have been made specifically for the game. And honestly, there's not really much I can say about it. The visuals are pretty good. The gameplay loop is exactly what you think it is if you know what a match 3 game is, except you have to throw the different colored orbs to match them up, instead of having to select where they're going to go, like in a traditional game like Candy Crush where you have direct control. So there's a bit of skill involved here because you do actually have to lob them. And the physics of throwing them are pretty on point, even though I'm really bad at it. And it does add a level of challenge that is quite a lot of fun. This game I think would be perfect for kids to play, or if you really like your match 3 Candy Crush style games on, your phone and you want one in VR, this is surprisingly a much better game than I thought it was going to be in terms of that genre, because there are also puzzles to do in between each match 3 level, even though they aren't that hard. So Rainbow Reactor Fusion, I did have a fair bit of fun with, even though the gameplay loop is incredibly simple. It's not trying to oversell itself, so I was perfectly happy with the experience that I got from it. With that being said, let's jump over to the game that I have many more thoughts about for this week, and that is System Critical 2. Now, I genuinely do have a lot of thoughts about this Mega Man style shooter that's made by one singular person, but let's go through it in the normal fashion like I always do, starting with the visuals. Here they are pretty sharp in the headset. Some far objects do have a bit of aliasing on them, because I don't think anti-aliasing is implemented. It might be, but I can't really see it doing its work in the far distance. But overall it looks pretty sharp, but the textures, as you can see, are very indie. They're not that detailed in terms of some of the level design, and that's a limitation of the budget and the dev team, which again, is one person. The game does use AI voices for basically everything. You'll get an intro sort of slideshow showing you the lore of the game, and the voice that exposits to you is an AI, unfortunately, but again, indie game, they probably didn't have the budget to go and hire a voice actor, as this was just a passion project. So I can kind of give that a pass, but this is the kind of quality that you're looking at, similar to, say, the first Cactus Cowboy. Now let's go through some gameplay stuff in no particular order. Platforming is a big part of the game. It's quite hard, but it is decent. It feels quite tight. I mean, you have to really be careful with the left stick in terms of where you're landing, because you have to carry momentum, otherwise you won't make it to the next jump. You do get a double jump, but each level does feature pretty prominent platforming stuff with moving platforms, so if you mess up, you have to start again at the last checkpoint. The guns are okay. One of them is a normal pistol, and then one is the arm cannon Mega Man style that is very cool, but isn't quite as punchy as I kind of wanted it to be. It does have several modes, especially as you complete levels going through the game. You get more unlocked, but the haptics for these guns are also good, and the haptics can be felt lightly in the headset as well. I was kind of wondering about this. I thought I felt them in the headset, but I don't know if I was just placebo affecting myself. But I'm pretty sure there are very light headset haptics when you get shot and when you're shooting other people. Either way, the haptics and the controllers are also good. That's an area that I didn't expect this game to excel. It did surprise me there, because a lot of indie games like this do skip out on the haptics, and I'm happy to report that they are here. The levels themselves are pretty short, sub 10 minutes for most of them. But the bullet hell that they throw at you is pretty addictive, and they also do have bosses at the end of it, which are quite intimidating and fun to fight. There's also music for each level that's made by the dev, and again, this does feel very indie. I didn't find this particularly annoying or bad in most cases. I think the menu music isn't great, but the ones in the levels are okay, because I know some others will, because Brian and AJ found the music very bad on the PSVR2 with that Prol show a couple days ago when they were talking about the game. I personally didn't find that it annoyed me, but it certainly wasn't like above indie level music. I feel like it will be intrusive to some people as it was for them. Just personally for me, I didn't find it too bad. The game does lack a few quality of life features that I would like. For example, there's no proper menu to adjust settings in terms of vignetting or anything like that while you're in the level. You can adjust snap turn as it's on by default, and you just turn it off or on by pressing in the right stick, but there's no dedicated menu for these things, and it also makes going back to the menu to select a new level if you're sick of your current one quite hard, as you have to close the game and open it again to go back to that menu, unless you want to stick with the level and beat it. However, there are checkpoints throughout these levels and they do feel not too hard. I mean, there is a very clear high difficulty bar that the dev wanted to implement with bullet hell, and I think that does kind of work, but you can definitely make your way through them without getting really frustrated after doing a couple runs. Another quality of life feature that I wish the game kind of had was holsters for your sword, shield, and grenades, just like, say, the Light Brigade does with its roguelite loop. You can store grenades in a little inventory. Even recently, we looked at the Foglands, which also has an inventory system for grenades where you can just quickly put them in there and take them out. There's nothing for this in System Critical, unfortunately, and I would love to see that implemented because your guns go into their holsters just fine, but if you pick up a sword or shield around the map, which are very, very fun to use, hacking and slashing your way through the level, you're just going to have to hold on to them for the whole time using hold grip instead of toggle grip like you do for your normal guns, which is a little bit annoying. Same for grenades, you're going to have to hold on to them for a very long time if you want to find a place where you can actually use them, because you're not usually very close up to the enemies you're fighting unless you're in indoor sections. Speaking of the sections, some of them are okay in terms of layout and they actually feel like pretty well constructed levels, but some of them are just copy-pasted sections that you will find yourself recognizing as they repeat themselves throughout each of the maps. The maps themselves do have some pretty great visual variety, and some of the skyboxes here do look pretty good, but overall the copy and pasted sections did take me out of it. My overall impressions on System Critical 2 is that the gameplay is a fairly fun Mega Man styled experience, but the lack of quality of life features, some of the visuals and some of the music does bring it down a bit for me, and ultimately this game is $20. For $5 more you could go and grab, say, Vertigo 2, which I believe is one of the best games on the platform, so I just feel like the price point here should be a lot lower than it currently is. That being said, I did have fun with it, but I just don't know if I could recommend this game for the price it's currently at. Anyway, thank you all for watching, I hope you did enjoy. Please do let me know if you're tempted to buy Rainbow Reactor Fusion or System Critical 2. Thank you to our patron Luke Bentley and everybody else who's considered supporting the channel. The patron and membership links are in the description and you'll get a shout out from me every single video. We still have a fair bit of work to do for the rest of this week in terms of PSVR2. We're going to be covering the best games coming out in March for PSVR2 tomorrow, as March begins tomorrow. And then shortly after that, we'll be talking about Zenith because it has just rebranded to its free-to-play model. We're going to be jumping into that, seeing if that is any good, if it's worth it. And we're also going to take a look at the new Gran Turismo 7 update because that has also just come out and there are 3 new cars added to the game. The R4 GTL 85, the Lancer Evo 9MR, and the Audi S TT Coupe 2009, all of which I will be looking at in the next Gran Turismo 7 video. On top of that, we're also going to be jumping into a bit of Blade and Sorcery and back into the Radius on PSVR. So there's a lot of content that's lined up for the next couple of days, so please do subscribe if any of that will interest you, and we're also covering any and all PSVR2 games that come out that I can get access to. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.